Today we're doing lesson 9.4. We're continuing on with circles, but we are learning how to write circles in descriptive form. When we do this, this is similar to what we did with parabolas, and except for you're going to have to complete the square 2 times because you have your x values and you also have your y values. So the first thing you want to do is basically group your x's together, and remember that if you have any plain numbers, we're going to kind of move those to the other side because they're going to go along with your radius. In this case, there's no plain number, so I have my x's. So when I write this, I'm going to write it in my parentheses, x squared plus 4x plus blank, and close my parenthesis. With the y squared, notice that there's no plain y with it. So I don't need to complete my square for the y squared because the y value, the vertex, is just going to be 0. Hopefully some of you said would be 0. And if I said vertex, I actually meant to say center, so sorry. Okay, equals, and then over on this side I have 0. And then since I have a blank on this side plus a blank, I also need plus a blank on this side. Now when we were doing the parabolas, if I added a blank, I subtracted a blank because I was on the same side of the equal sign. In this case with the circle, I'm going to add to both sides. When you add to both sides, you would keep them exactly the same. So again, just to go back and look at what I'm saying right now, when we were completing the square back in 9.2, okay, notice on this problem, here we added a blank and subtracted a blank because they were on the same side. So in order to balance, when they're on the same side, you have to add and also subtract. On 9.4, when we're dealing with circles, this one, they are on opposite sides of the equal sign. So it's just like when you're solving an equation like, let's say if I was solving x plus 3 equals 7. Well, if I subtract 3 to one side of the equal sign, I also subtract 3 to the other side of the equal sign, and I end up getting x equals 4. That balances. Notice how I did the same thing to both sides of the equal sign. So here, that's why I have the same blank on both sides of the equal sign. So now we're going to complete the square with the x's. So remember, we take our middle term, which is 4. We divide 4 by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Once you have that half number, we square that, and 2 squared equals 4. So 4 is what goes in each of my blanks. So now we're going to write our square. So this right here, if I'm completing my square, is going to be x plus, and it's always my half number, so it's x plus 2 squared. And then I just bring down, I saw plus y squared equals, and 0 plus 4 equals 4. So this is my equation for my circle in descriptive form. So now from this information we want to write our center. And that should be pretty easy because we learned about that yesterday. And so my center here, it's always the opposite of what's in parentheses. So my x value is -2 and my y value is 0. Also remember, in order to find the radius, this value is actually r squared. So if r squared equals 4, we take the square root of both sides, and r equals 2. So my radius value is 2. Okay, moving on to the next question. When we look at example 2, if you notice here, the x squared is by itself. There's no plain x term to complete the square with. So in this case, we don't have to complete the square with the x term. We only have to complete the square with the y term. So when I write this out, I'm going to write x squared plus, and then for the y's, we go y squared plus 10y plus blank, close our parentheses, equals 0. And since I have a blank here, I also need that same blank on the other side of the equation because we have to add the same thing to both sides to be fair. So completing this square here, we take our middle term, which is 10. 10 divided by 2 is 5. and 5 squared is 25. So 25 is the value that goes in each of my blanks. So when we write our equation here, I'm going to have x squared plus, and y squared plus 10y plus 25, that factors to be our perfect square, and our square is y plus 5 squared. And again, it'll always be that half term, equals, and then 0 plus 25 is 25. So now my circle has been written in descriptive form. And we can write our center, and our center in this case with the x value of the center is 0, and the y value will end up becoming -5. Our radius, r squared equals 25, and to find the radius, we take the square root of both sides, so my radius is 5. Okay, moving on to example 3. Now this is getting a little bit more complicated. This time we have our x's, and I'm going to kind of write these in different colors. My x's, and then I also have my y's. Okay, when we're completing the square, our x squared and y squared terms, they always need to be positive. And we also always, you don't want a number in front, so we always have to factor out that number. So starting with the x's, I would factor out a 3, make my parenthesis, which means I would divide this by 3 and end up with just x squared, which is what I want. And then we would divide this -12 by, or -12x by 3, which would make -4x. And then we still need plus our blank. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the y's. And so for the y's, I'm going to factor out a 3 as well, because there's a 3 in front there. And when I divide that by 3, I get y squared, plus an 18y divided by 3 makes 6y, plus a blank. Close our parenthesis. This now equals, and then we still have this 9 value right here. So I have that equals 9. And then remember that if there's a 3 in front here, this is really meaning 3 times that blank. So I have plus 3 times my blank. And then same thing with the y. I have 3 times that blank. So I have plus 3 times my blank for the y. So however many values you have to have over here. So I have a 3 and a blank for my x and a 3 and a blank for my y. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and complete the square for the x. So we take our middle term, which is -4, divide it by 2, which makes -2, and we square it. And -2 squared is 4. So 4 goes in each of these blanks. For my y's, I take my middle term, 6, divided by 2, which is 3. We then square that value, which makes 9. So 9 goes in each of these blanks. Now for writing our equation. So here I have 3, and then my square is x minus 2 squared. Plus, for my y's now I have 3, and when I completed this square, it's going to be y plus 3 squared equals, and then now I need to simplify everything that I have right here. Okay, so I have this 9 plus 3 times 4 is 12 plus 3 times 9 is 27. So then we add through there, 9 plus 12 is 21, and 21 plus 27 makes 48. So this equals 48. Now, if you remember from yesterday, we also cannot have a 3 in front of our values on the circles. So in order to get rid of those 3's in front, I have to divide every single term by 3. So when I do that, those 3's cancel out, and I have x minus 2 squared plus, here we get y plus 3 squared equals, and 48 divided by 3 is 16. So now I have my equation for my circle in descriptive form. From there, we can state what our center is. And in this case, my center, the x value of the center is positive 2, and the y value of my center is negative 3. My radius is 16, and that's actually my radius squared is 16, so we take the square root and we get r equals 4. So my radius is 4. All right, we're going to move on to example 4 now. Okay, so this one, again, is similar, but notice that sometimes the x's and y's are mixed up. So you want to make sure that you get your x's together and your y's together. And then any value that's on the left side of the equation needs to be moved to the right. That's just a plain number. So I'm going to subtract 42 and move it over here as negative 42. So when you saw this, I'm going to start with my x's. Notice I underlined them in red. So I'm going to have to take out a 6. Good. So we take out a 6, and I have x squared when I divide that by 6. And when I divide this by 6, I end up with a negative 6x plus my blank. Close my parenthesis. Okay, now I'm going to move on to my y's. So I'm going to have plus 6 parenthesis, and I'm going to divide each of these y's by 6. And so I get y squared plus, and 12 divided by 6 is 2y plus my blank equals, and then I still have my negative 42, because 0 minus 42 is negative 42. And then I need my 6 times blank on the other side, and I need my 6 times blank for my y. Okay. So when we go through here now to complete the square, we take our middle term of negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. So 9 goes in each of my blanks for my x's. Then we go to my y. Again, I take my middle term, which is 2. I take 2 divided by 2, which is 1, and 1 squared is 1. So 1 goes in each of my blanks for my y values. Now we're going to write our squares. So I have 6 parentheses, and this is going to be x minus 3 squared, and it's minus 3 because of my half number. For my y's, I have plus 6 parentheses, and it's going to be y plus 1 squared, again because of that 1, equals, and then now we need to simplify all of this. So we have negative 42 plus 6 times 9 is 54, plus 6 times 1 is 6. And when we add all those together, we end up getting 18. Okay, and again, we cannot have these values in front. So our last step here is to divide each of these by 6, because we cannot have a number in front of our terms. So these cancel, and I get x minus 3 squared plus y plus 1 squared equals, and 18 divided by 6 is 3. So now I have my equation written in descriptive form. My center for this problem, again, we always take the opposite of the parentheses, so that will be 3 comma negative 1. And my radius, if we set this up, r squared equals 3. In order to find the radius, we take the square root of both sides, so r equals the square root of 3. Okay, so moving on to example 5. If possible, I would like you to freeze whatever's going on right now, so press enter on here so that everyone can have a chance to try this one on their own, and then I'll work through it. Okay, so hopefully you got a chance to try this on your own first. So again, we always want to put our x terms together. Actually, I'm going to use blue, sorry. X terms together, and then our y terms together. And then this negative 11, I'm going to go ahead and add 11 to move it over here to this other side. So there's no terms in front of this one now, so we just have to write this out to complete the square. So I have parenthesis, x squared plus 2x plus blank plus for my y's, again, I don't have a number in front, so I have to factor anything out. So I have y squared plus 4y plus blank. And then this equals, and I have an 11. And then I need one blank. There's nothing in front, so I don't have to write anything over here. So I have a plus a blank for my x. And then I also have plus a blank for my y. So now when we go through and solve this, the first thing I'm going to do is start with my x's. We take our middle term, which happens to be 2. 2 divided by 2 equals 1, and 1 squared equals 1. For my y's, I take 4 divided by 2, which is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So 4 goes there. So again, 4 should go in each of my red blanks, and 1 should have gone in each of my blue blanks. When I write this square, this is going to be x plus 1 squared, because 1 was my half number. Plus, for my y's, it's going to be y plus 2 squared, because 2 was my half number, equals, and when we simplify over here, 11 plus 1 plus 4 equals 16. So this equals 16. There is my equation in descriptive form. My center for this problem should be -1 comma -2, and my radius, r squared equals 16. We take the square root, so r equals 4. Okay, last one. It says example 10, but it should have said example 6. Identify the following as a circle, a parabola, or neither. Again, we talked about how parabolas have they only have one squared term, where circles have 2 squared terms. This right here doesn't have any square terms. Can you tell me what type of shape this is? Hopefully your answer was a line. It does not fit into circle or parabola, so this one is neither. What type of equation is this? Hopefully you said parabola, and we know this is a parabola. Why? Because there is one x squared term, or one squared term. On this last one, you would probably need to do a little bit of work, but if you were to look, see how the x squared has a number in front, but could we divide everything by 5 to get rid of a number in front of that? And we'd get x squared plus 2x plus 4y equals 5 minus y squared. And if we brought this y squared over here, it'd be a positive y squared, and then we could find the answer. So if you look, this really is a circle. And you could do all the work in order to see it in your descriptive form. Okay, so that is the end of notes today.